Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, Superintendent of Public Instruction Tom Horn joins us to talk about Arizona's persistent teacher shortage. Also tonight, Arizona leaders now want the federal government to step in and end the fight between states over Colorado River water. And new research looks at health threats from dust and spores caused by mining operations. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. A recent report by the Arizona Department of Education found that more than 1,000 teachers in the state have resigned since July. It's yet another indication that Arizona is still experiencing what seems to be an ever-persistent shortage of teachers. For more on this, we welcome State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Horn. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you, Ted.
All right, 1,000 teachers have left the profession as of July. From where you sit, why is this happening?
Well, the number one reason is salary. We absolutely have to increase the salary of the teachers. And the number two reason is a failure by some administrators not to support teachers on issues of discipline. So I have a letter from a teacher from Phoenix Union, which is notoriously lax on discipline, saying that she could name 40 teachers that have left because of failure to get support on discipline. If you don't get support from the administration on discipline, the kids get unruly, and it makes it impossible for the teacher.
And with this going on, most of these jobs, these vacancies are now, I would imagine some of these things are being filled by substitutes?
Yes, there are about 4,000 vacancies that are filled mostly by permanent substitutes who are not properly trained to teach, so the kids are getting cheated. And there are about 1,000 where there's nobody at all.
Yeah, I was going to say certification, I should say, the requirements, have they met? Some of these subs probably haven't met those yet, have they?
Right.
And what do you do about them?
Well, what we have to do is we have to raise their salaries, and we have to pass a bill, which I've been trying to get through the legislature, to give incentives to administrators to support their teachers on discipline.
The actual shortage of teachers, though, are you surprised? Because I've been here a while, Tom, and I got to tell you, we always seem to have a shortage of teachers.
Yes, but it's reached a point where it's really an emergency. I'm trying to sound the bell and alert people. It's really an emergency now. We absolutely have to take strong action. Now, I think this is the year to do it because this is the deadline year for Prop 123, dealing with the land trust. And the teacher salaries increase can come out of the land trust, so it doesn't affect anyone's taxes. And I'm hopeful that will happen.
And yet I can hear critics saying that it seems like we're constantly voting on this and we're constantly approving increased funding for education, increased funding for teachers, and yet we have this situation. What's going on?
Well, when we say we're constantly getting increases, out of 51 states plus the District of Columbia, we're 51st in our support per student.
Right. But what I'm saying is it seems like this has been an issue for a while.
It's been an issue,
people have voted on this, and they said they want teachers to get more money and more money to go to education. Yeah. They voted for this. Why isn't it happening?
Well, it hasn't happened sufficiently. Matt Gress had a bill in the legislature to increase the teacher salaries by $10,000. That would have put us in the top 10 for starting teachers, but unfortunately it didn't pass.
The problem of recruiting, obviously the problem of retention is what we're talking about here. When you have competitive states with competitive salaries that are just simply more lucrative.
Oh yeah, I remember when I was in Kingman hearing about they're close to another state, and it's a particular problem if you're close to another state where people can just move over and get more salary.
And inflation, I imagine, is playing a part in this too as well.
Yes.
Yeah. I mentioned Prop 123, the use of the state land trust funds. Do you want that? What do you want to see done? Do you want that to be targeted solely for teachers? Because there's a lot of thought that it's not just teachers that need help in education.
Right. Well, at the legislature, among the Republican majority, they want to help the teachers. And so, some people have complained, well, what about what they call the classified employees, the secretaries and the bus drivers and so on. But I'll take what I can get. And so if all we can get is for the teachers, hopefully the districts will be able to take care of the classified employees. But I think if for the last 2 or 3 years, it's been part of the program of the Republican majority to increase salaries specifically for teachers and to send the money directly to teachers, because under Governor Ducey, they did an increase, but they sent it to the districts and they diverted some of the money to other things. So they want the money to go directly to teachers, and I support that.
So this, by the way, the Prop 123, messing around with that, you got to get voter approval.
Yes.
You think voters would go for that?
I think so. They've always been supportive of education.
You're right. Which was my previous point. It's
Yeah,
like,
right.
what are we sitting here for?
Yeah, right.
All right. We've done a number of surveys on teachers, and salary obviously is up there, but so is feeling underappreciated.
Right.
Do you see that? Do you understand that? And what can you do as superintendent of public instruction to help teachers who just feel like they're getting it from all sides?
Well, I just did a press conference honoring 5 schools that got Blue Ribbon Awards. The federal government did that, and they used to have them come to Washington, and this year they stopped. So I did it, and I have another press conference coming up this week about honoring teachers and honoring schools that have done well. So I'm doing everything I can to show appreciation to the teachers.
And yet we hear from the legislature, I think the governor had a quote saying the legislature singles out and attacks the public education system, restrictions on what can be taught, what can't be taught. Maybe some lawmakers want to see criminal action if you teach something this way. I mean, that's not a good way to show support.
Well, it depends what it is. Now the president has said if you teach diversity, equity, and inclusion, you can lose your federal funding. And I'm the one that would enforce that. And I agree with it. I've been fighting its earlier application, critical race theory, since 2008, when I got a bill passed to put a stop to ethnic studies at the Tucson Unified School District. My belief is that what's important is individual merit. The people that are into DEI have an alternative theory that it should be racial entitlements. The problem with racial entitlements is they don't do anything to encourage hard work or conscientiousness or creativity. And if they win, then we could become a mediocre country and China becomes the dominant power in the world calling the shots, if you can imagine that. So I agree with the president on this. I think that we need to stop paying attention to people's race. It's not relevant to anything. We need to have individual merit as our gold standard.
Do you think that what you just said is the kind of thing that will attract people to the teaching profession?
It'll attract the right people to the teaching profession.
Right, and if it doesn't, but will it attract people, all kinds of people, the right people from different angles to the profession?
I think it's very important. So I'm not going to stop saying it in order to attract teachers that disagree with me.
Okay, so how do you plan to address this? Last question here. I know your State of Education speeches, you're always saying something along the lines of, let's address teacher salaries.
Right.
Are lawmakers listening? Are you having conversation? Yes. If they're listening, what are they doing about it?
Well, the plan was to do it last year out of Prop 123, but there were political disagreements, and so they didn't pass it, and they knew they had another year. But this year is the deadline year, so I'm hopeful that it'll happen this year.
All right, Tom Horn, Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Great to see you, Ted. Come back anytime you want.
You bet.
Thanks.
Mark your calendars. Tuesday, December 2nd is Giving Tuesday, a special day of philanthropy aimed at making a real impact in our community. You can double your impact with a donation to Arizona PBS on Giving Tuesday, as the station has received a match gift in memory of Ronald Thomas Lane. Whether you make a contribution to Arizona PBS on December 2nd or any other date, know that your continued support is critical and will help us continue to serve Arizonans for generations to come.
You ready?
Let's do it.
It's so nice to have you here. It's worth it.
Wheels up in 5.
Very simple, but very elegant food.
I'm trying to save your father's life.
Excited?
I can't wait.
The 7 states that share Colorado River water missed a November 11th deadline to reach an agreement on water allocations. The federal government had threatened to intervene if an agreement wasn't reached, and now Arizona leaders from both parties are asking for that intervention to end the stalemate. Joining us now is Sarah Porter, director of ASU's Kyle Center for Water Policy. Thank you so much for joining us here. Let's talk about this deadline. November 11th, what was supposed to happen by November 11th?
It was the aspiration of the Secretary of Interior, who's the boss of the Colorado River system of managing the reservoirs, that the 7 states that share Colorado River water would come to an agreement on new guidelines for managing the system in this time of unprecedented shortage of water in the system. So essentially, a lot of technical guidelines, but a sharing of shortage was what they were hoping for.
And they didn't get it.
Right.
Why?
There's a big impasse between the upper basin states of Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Utah, and the lower basin states, which are Arizona, California, and Nevada. The crux of the disagreement is that the upper basin states will not agree to take cuts in the water that they take out of the system. The lower basin has come forward and said, we'll take the first huge cut of 1.5 million acre feet out of 7.5 that the lower basin has apportioned to it. They would take that, but then beyond that, they've requested that the upper basin share in the shortage, and the upper basin is really refusing to share in a way that the lower basin regards as meaningful and measurable.
I was going to say, are the upper basin states just saying no outright, or no, but we can do a little bit here and a little bit there, and the lower basin states saying that's not going to cut it?
It depends on who you ask. But I think the lower basin negotiators would say, no, they're just saying no outright. And the upper basin's contention has been, we've never used our full apportionment. We've always used far less than our full apportionment, and so we don't think it's reasonable to be asked to take cuts when we're not even using our full amount. By the same token, the lower basin has really been reducing the amount of water that those 3 states take out of the river.
And we've talked many times about how you really don't want the federal government to come in here and start telling everyone how much water they're going to be able to use. Arizona didn't want this. Arizona wants this right now. What's going on with that?
Well, if a deal could be reached, a deal that feels fair to across the 7 states, that's best, because that means we would continue to work, according to agreement and consensus. Since it appears that a deal cannot be reached, Arizona has basically laid out its case to the federal government to say, here's why it really matters to Arizona.
Is there any indication of the federal government, what they would do, how they would look at this, how they would look at Arizona?
We have some idea about how the federal government would justify taking action outside of an agreement among the 7 states, but we really don't know what those actions would be. So we don't know whether the feds would be willing to deliver water out of priority. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, and I think a big deal would also be, interestingly enough, the semiconductor boom here in Arizona. You're talking national security now, aren't you?
Yeah, you are. And a great big city of 4.5 million people. There are all kinds of arguments that Arizona can make, and were really, I think, clearly stated in the bipartisan letter.
The fact that Arizona has tried conservation measures, and we've talked about those over the years, and tried to do as best, well, maybe not as best, but certainly make a mark and try and do something with, will that play into the decision by the feds?
Certainly, one would hope. We don't know what is going to factor into any decision making by the Bureau of Reclamation, the Secretary of Interior, except what's been indicated in the environmental impact statements that have been published up to now. But what we do think that places that can show that they're really trying, that they're trying to be efficient, that they're trying to be cooperative, that puts us in a better position. And the lower basin really has taken great strides in reducing its water use. Year before last, it was the lowest water use on record by the lower basin.
Interesting. Are there conservation measures being taken by the upper basin states that we're not hearing about? Because, as you said, they're not even using everything they're allocated.
Yeah, so what's difficult about the upper basin is they're the headwaters. So all of the water that's delivered to the lower basin is delivered out of a reservoir, and we can count it. We can count every gallon. In the upper basin, it's a matter of how much water they essentially leave in the system to flow into the reservoirs to a great extent. There's some reservoirs upstream that some people rely on, but it's difficult to measure, and there hasn't been a lot of excitement in the upper basin about adopting the types of measurement that would satisfy the lower basin. So the two sides, the lower basin would say the upper basin isn't willing to measure conservation in a way that would guarantee the lower basin that those cuts are happening.
Wow. Okay, so I know that October 1st next year is kind of the real deadline, the capital D deadline as far as getting a compact. What was this was this deadline like the first hurdle to clear before October 1st?
Kinda. There are all these things that have to happen for a new agreement to be put in place, including finalizing the environmental impact statement. Arizona has to get legislative approval. In many cases, there's a need for congressional approval. So in the minds of the Department of Interior, the November 11th deadline was kind of backdating to the time it would take to get everything done in order to implement a new plan for the next year. And we do have the plan in place, as you say, till next October. And we would like to be able to plan for the years following that. And right now, we don't have the guidelines in place.
What should we watch for between now and October 1st?
So what we hear is that the negotiators are still working at it. There's a big conference, a big annual conference in late December. Maybe there will be a breakthrough by then. And if there isn't, we can expect an indication, probably in the next big environmental assessment, of actions that the feds would be willing to do. Some of this depends on hydrology. What happens with snowpack. There are a lot of reasons not to be very hopeful that we're going to have a really good year that's going to help the reservoirs stay, up a little bit.
Sarah Porter, Kyle Center for Water Policy. As always, thank you so much for the insight. We appreciate it.
Good to talk with you.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump does a 180 on the House vote to release the Epstein files. That's at 6 on Arizona PBS.
The University of Arizona's Superfund Research Center recently received a 5-year grant to help better understand and mitigate health threats within mining communities. Chin Ding is with the U of A's Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology, and Raina Mayer is with the university's College of Agriculture, Life, and Environmental Services. Thank you both for coming up from Tucson. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
All right, this is the U of A Superfund Research Center, former director, current director, correct?
Yes.
What's it all about?
It's all about trying to solve some of the complex environmental hazard or contamination problems we have in this state and protect human and environmental health.
And looking at basically spores and dust from mining operations?
So we all know that here in Arizona we got lots of dust, particularly in certain regions in here. So what we're trying to figure out is what's actually in the dust in terms of the chemicals, the toxic metals, and so on, and what kind of exposures we actually get and how to prevent it.
What do we know so far about that, the exposure and what that exposure causes?
We know it has arsenic is one of the major toxic metals, and it has other metals in it too, and it has fungal spores that can cause infections and leads to lung diseases like asthma and some valley fever included as well. And so it's quite serious.
And again, the spores, are they similar? Do the spores have these this metal attachments, these sorts of things?
The spores are all part of the particle complex. So the particle has spores attached and metals attached, and the spores kind of interact with the metals to perhaps make the metals more toxic.
Oh my goodness.
And perhaps make it easier for the spores to cause infection.
The impact on mining communities and native nations, what have we seen so far?
We know that there are some mining communities that neighbor mine waste sites. And we know that windstorms blow the mine tailings into those communities and cause exposures. So we've done measurements on yard soils, we've done measurements inside homes, and you can see that there are elevated concentrations of metals that people are exposed to.
$14.8 million 5-year federal grant, 4 projects to be studied relatively quickly here. I know arsenic is one of them. And you're going to build a model now to learn about this exposure. Talk to us about that.
Yes, so the project has, the grant has 4 projects, the 2 biomedical projects, 2 environmental projects. So the 2 biomedical projects, one is to look at how the arsenic and other metals in the particles will make the airways more vulnerable to infection by fungal spores, by mold. And so that's the first project. The second project is to look at really what exactly in the particle is the most potent in terms of causing toxicity, and where do they go, what part of the lung is the most vulnerable, and what diseases in the lung do they actually cause? Yeah,
and trying to figure out, obviously, lung disease in some way, shape, or form is at risk here. Mm-hmm. Mine tailings for revegetation. I read about that. I have no idea what is that all about?
Well, so the 2 environmental projects, one of them is actually characterizing the mine tailing dusts that form. How big are the particles, what metals are associated, and if you expose those particles to lung fluids, how much of the metal actually comes out to cause toxicity.
Wow.
Then the final one is the revegetation, where if you vegetate, you can suppress dust emission. And that solves the problem, right? So we are looking at plants that can thrive and survive on mine tailings. We are looking at plants that both accumulate metals into above ground tissues so that you could actually harvest them and collect the metals. We're also looking at plants that stabilize metals in the soil. So we'd like to identify several different scenarios depending on what communities want.
And last question, the real world applications of what you're doing here. Obviously, the health and well-being of communities and such, but that sounds like pretty advanced stuff she's talking about there.
Yeah, so there are several fronts that will affect the real world. One is they'll help to set standards for exposure level, safety exposure levels. For now, you look at your AQIs, look at the phone and say, well, today's air quality is bad. That really counts only for particle size, the abundance. It doesn't tell you what's in the particle. Is it how much arsenic is actually in the particle you're exposed to? So we hope that in the future we can help with that. And we also help with, we have a community engagement efforts that will better inform the community about the risks that they're facing and identify the sites that's really bad. So.
Well, very good. Congratulations on the grant. It's kind of difficult to get through these days, so congratulations on that. Xin Ding again, and Raina Mayer, U of A. Continued success.
Thank you.
And thanks for sharing.
having us.
Yes, you appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Because kids will always be more curious, Arizona PBS delivers programs that serve as a trusted guide for little explorers. Thanks to you and...
Welcome to Friendship Village. Let me show you around. Wow! It's like a cruise ship on land. Do you like art? Music? Heated pool? Yoga? Pickleball? There are events and group outings for just about every interest.
The food!
There's so much to do here.
Move it or lose it. Well, this is our stop.
Let's keep going! Yeah! Coming up tonight at 7. At 9. At 11.
Arizona PBS is made possible by the generous